everyone, and welcome to I Be There, our weekly live stream show. Today, we will be talking about how 5G and AI will accelerate XR adoption. We have two guests with us today, so I'd like to welcome Jason Yim, CEO of Trigger, an XR agency, and Nico Charles at Verizon. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, yeah,
Jason,
I'm Jason Yim, yeah. CEO of Trigger XR. So we're the most experienced XR agency in the world with 300,000 plus hours of dev experience in this space. And we focus on entertainment, sports, and commerce clients, as well as some enterprise as well.
Great.
And I'm Nico Charles. I work at Verizon on a product innovation team focused on building enterprise solutions at the nexus of XR and 5G. And recently also started building some experiences on the consumer side.
Great. Well, thank you for both being here today. Before we get started, maybe let's just define for the audience what we're talking about here. Jason, when we say XR, what are we referring to?
Yeah, I think a good way to look at XR is like it's a spectrum, everything between augmented reality and virtual reality, and all the nuances and stuff in between. So that includes things from social lenses that you get from Snap, Facebook, Instagram, to web AR, to app-based AR experiences like Pokemon Go, all the way up to HMDs, like head-mounted devices, where you can, wear a headset and the AR content is in your room as well.
Right, so it's really sort of an umbrella term.
I would also just add, at least from our perspective, we also include really anything to do with 3D content and spatial computing, or sort of an understanding of your environment and your immediate surroundings.
So that's comprehensive definition. And where are we now in terms of adoption? Like, how many people use it? What's the engagement? Let's start with you, Jason. Yeah,
I mean, I think, on social AR, I mean, things like Snap lenses and things like that, like the numbers are actually getting quite significant, for a launch, we might have something like, tens of millions of users using a single lens experience. We recently did a AR portal actually for Verizon and Pepsi for the Super Bowl during the halftime show. And we had 500,000 people in an AR portal at the same time for 90% of the length of the halftime show. So it wasn't just a gimmick. It wasn't just something that they popped in and out, but they actually used it almost as a second screen experience. Yeah, real engagement, real numbers. We're seeing more adoption at scale. But I think where we're heading to is towards, the holy grail is HMD, right? Like you put your phone away and you can put your glasses on and you can see the AR content all around you. It's definitely not here yet, but there's big steps, kind of evolutionary leaps that are happening. Qualcomm recently launched a device where it's a wireless connection from the glasses to the phone, so you can now do it untethered. Wow. And then even at this CES, new devices that are passed through. HTC launched one, which was a light enough weight experience where you could wear them as glasses. They had a fixture on the back, kind of like a normal HoloLens 2, but you could take that off completely and just have a glasses version of the headset. So it's all these things are getting closer and closer and closer.
Yeah, and the less of a bulky sort of hardware between us and that virtual experience, I think the more we'll see that adoption grow.
Yeah, less bulky, lighter, and has to look good too. If you're going to walk around with it all the time, yeah.
But two things on that though that I would just bring up. One is usage of or consumption of content in an HMD is not the only it's not the only way to measure is XR technology being consumed and starting to permeate our society. If you look at simpler applications of XR, like almost any shopping site will have see this thing in 3D, put it in your home, or 3D instant replays of NFL games or highlight reels. that there are indicators that consuming this kind of content, even outside of an HMD, is really growing. And I mean, we count that as XR or 3D content or spatial computing as well.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely feel like adoption depends on how you're defining it. So there's those more at scale experiences. And yeah, I think the holy grail when we actually get there is a different level of adoption.
I just want to add to what Nico said, like, the only reason why that scale is also happening is because of the effectiveness, so like, as Nico was saying, like, even on the shopping side, it is going from onesies and twosies to, I think Amazon just released with thousands of sunglasses that you can try on the Amazon store in AR. And that's because of the, big conversion rates that you get compared to just looking at 2D content.
Conversion rates and return and lower return rates, I think.
Yeah.
I think with commerce going online, retailers have had to deal with people trying things and then deciding it doesn't work for them. This kind of technology lets people have a better idea of if the product is a fit. So I think we're seeing reduced returns as well, which saves money there. Nico, can you maybe give us a 2-minute primer on where we're at with 5G? I've been hearing about the rollout for a while. Like, where are we at with that?
2 minutes. Okay. So 5G is the first thing I would say is 5G means many different things. There isn't a single definition of what it is that is applicable to that technology across all telcos in the US or around the world. It's rolling out quickly, but the full impact of everything that 5G has to offer, certainly from the Verizon perspective, it's still going to take a little while longer before all of the different components of what 5G can offer can really be realized. It also depends on where you are in terms of population density and in a big city versus out in the middle of nowhere. And then are the devices that you are using, whether those are phones or computers or cars or XR HMDs, for those to take full advantage of the 5G network, they're going to have 5G radio chips in them. And that's coming. They're very much going to be in the next generation of devices.
Got it. And how is 5G transformational tech? I think we understand at a broad level it means faster processing, shorter lag time, but materially, how is it going to transform our digital experience?
Well, I would answer that in two ways. First, there on the technical side, there are 3 components of 5G that are truly transformational for XR technologies, for AR and VR and 3D content. And that's the combination of speed, which is what everybody thinks about, bandwidth and speed, low latency, and edge compute. And edge compute is that notion of the compute that currently happens on your device. So on your phone or on your VR headset or on your AR glasses, that can now be moved to the cloud. So instead of a single CPU or GPU on your local device, you can now leverage the power of a server farm that is close by. So that just means, an absolute exponential change in the amount of compute that is available to you. But the other way I would position it that I think is maybe a little bit more accessible is we're moving from a 2D world to a 3D world. So if you think about how we interface with technology today, it's 2D content on a flat screen. So we manipulate and we look at and we use 2D content on a phone, on a tablet, on a laptop. But with 5G, that's going to be the primary catalyst to shift us into and make accessible a 3D world where we are manipulating 3D content in a 3D spatially aware interface and surroundings. And you're, instead of holding up your phone and looking through it to see something, it'll just be all around you and contextually aware. And you'll get these overlays of content on top of whatever you're doing in a work situation, in entertainment, sports, what have you.
Some of the people have been referring to this as the real world metaverse, where you're seeing that blurring of the physical and digital, as opposed to the Ready Player One. Just sort of.
I choose not to use the M word because it's I don't think that's helpful. But certainly that mixture of physical and digital is absolutely relevant.
Right. Yeah. So we've talked about XR. Thank you for that primer on 5G, and how that's going to sort of pull things out of our device, load off our devices and into the cloud. Jason, how are you seeing these 5G developments as being sort of like a catalyst to XR?
Yeah, I mean, I feel for XR is at that point where we've kind of moved past the gimmick stage, and we really need to move into utility, and that's what's going to drive big adoption from everybody. And I think for XR experiences to be useful, they have to be intelligent, they have to be smart, you know. So I think 5G is that kind of a fundamental, you know, delivery system that can, you know, if I have something AI driven on the cloud, it's fast enough to do that processing time, you know, pass those calculations back and forth so that a consumer is not waiting for those things to happen. And I think that's critical. I mean, if I'm talking to an AI character who's standing there in my room in AR, but in the middle of a conversation, I ask him a question, and it takes 3 seconds for the character to, you know, respond. Like, that breaks the fluidity and the usefulness immediately, you know. So I think there are these things that consumers are going to be so sensitive to, but they are not sensitive to the technology. They're just used to these, you know, they have an expectation that things will work at a certain speed without knowing how complicated that technology is to deliver that at that speed. And I think the other thing too is like, it was an interesting conversation the other day, and they were talking about, you know, you just went and watched Avatar 2, right? And like the amazing graphics in that, like, and then you step out and you do AR, and right now, you know, we have to do a big drop in terms of like visual fidelity because of the file sizes and things like that. But like what Nico had mentioned, once we can start doing rendering in the cloud and that's all processed somewhere else, you know, then we can bring up the visual quality of everything to kind of get closer to matching what consumers are just being built, being kind of conditioned to expect in everything, you know, digital. So
it's that fidelity of digital sort of coming up onto par with our real world sort of experience.
Yes.
And Trigger works with an amazing amount of brands, Verizon being one of them. Why should they be thinking about XR? How are they currently thinking, and how does that need to shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nico could talk a lot about on the enterprise side too, you know, for brands using it for their own kind of work process. But on the consumer side, we see a lot of adoption again in entertainment, sports, and commerce. I mean, on the commerce side, the big thing is like you can basically collapse the entire sales funnel into a single experience. You know, it can be super engaging. It can and attract attention, but it can also communicate all the details about the product, and then push all the way to transaction in like a single experience. On the entertainment side, I think it brings a lot to the table where it is the only technology where a fan gets to kind of feel like they're there or engage with a character in their own world. You know, you don't get that when you watch a 2D screen. And then on the sports and fan engagement side, similar thing. Like, we see a lot of interest of, especially during the pandemic, and even now because of stadium events are so expensive. Is like, how, if a person is watching from home, how do you give them some of that kind of fan engagement, the same kind of experience, even when they're, you know, sitting on their couch? that you would actually get at the sports event itself. So plus the fact that sports viewership is changing completely. There's so much betting, there's more data, people are consuming it in smaller chunks. Like the world's kind of being reinvented, and XR is kind of perfectly there to deliver that new story, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's key in order for these endemic sports sort of brands to nurture a new generation of viewers, right? I think linear TV is dropping off. The way people traditionally watch sport might be dropping off. So sort of being open to reinvent for this new generation is important. Nico, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just, this might be a little abstract, but when you're talking about why companies and brands should pay attention to this, there was a point a while ago where if you asked the question, why should you advertise or feature your brand on the internet? That there was a point where that was a valid question, and then there was a point where that was a silly question. Similarly, why should you advertise or feature your brand on a mobile device, on a phone? Same thing. That's a little bit more recent. We're at the cusp of that same question. Why should your brand start thinking about XR technologies and be in that space? I think we're very much nearing the end of that being a valid question and about to step into that being the most ridiculous question you could possibly ask. A friend of mine, Blair Harrison, who works CEO at Frequency, once said, the XR industry can be described as you're too early, too early, too early, too late. And right now,
like an avocado.
Right now, we're at the very end of the last too early.
No, I love that analogy because you're right. It was ridiculous people never thought online commerce would work because who's going to put their credit card, I'm aging myself, who's going to put a credit card on? And now it's sort of
right.
surpassing brick and mortar. I like that comparison.
And I think on the client side, we have such a range of clients, and we still do have some clients that are experimenting and looking at it innovation wise, or they might be looking at it as, these other brands in our space are doing it already. So how do we catch up? And then we also have on the other end of the spectrum, and these are massive, top Fortune 10, 5 companies that look at it as a complete existential threat. Like they know this is going to change commerce in the future. When the conversion to the internet or conversion to mobile commerce, maybe they move too slow and they drop from a high position to a lower position, and they don't want to repeat that on the XR side. So they want to be first. So we do see that kind of a realization from some of the larger ones, how important this is going to be. And you can see it in terms of not only budgets, but just their titles and officers, and who's being assigned to these projects on the client side shows their kind of commitment to the space.
Are you seeing XR moving out of the experimental budget and getting its own space yet, or is that sort of something that's in the works?
I got to take this one, Jason. Absolutely. So XR for enterprise, for businesses, particularly in sort of the practical application of it, where it's direct B2B, that is there today. Being used for things like training, onboarding, or A/B testing in simulations, creating digital twins of factories to determine the most efficient routes for autonomous vehicles to operate within, or how to detect anomalies on a manufacturing line using XR. Things like that are there now and are being leveraged today and are absolutely real. The technology is still complicated and in many cases expensive, which is why it's going to take a little longer before there's huge mass adoption on the consumer side. But enterprise is where those technologies are being leveraged the most today, and will evolve into the consumer side very quickly.
Jason, do you want to provide a consumer side to that?
Yeah, on the consumer side, I would say things that are like social AR and web AR are now just kind of common within the typical digital marketing budget.
Yep.
So, and we saw that shift. I mean, it went from, maybe a year ago, it was, hey, this is really exciting, to now it's just part of every single marketing campaign. So, especially, clients like a Disney or with products that are targeted towards kind of a younger audience, the expectation would be they're going to be doing something in AR for sure.
Yep. Nice background there. Thank you both. Shifting gears a little bit and getting a little more tactical in terms of the space that we're playing in and advertising. We sort of saw when we shifted from linear TV to digital TV or to digital video, new ad formats came, like the 15 and 30-second bumper came about, and now it's sort of it's such a known format by both consumers and advertisers. Where are we on that journey with XR? Will we get there? Are we going to have new glasses formats? How much sort of consistency are you seeing, or is it a lot of variety at the moment?
I think in terms of an ad format side of things, I think one thing that we're going to see is a big shift, and I think it's going to start to happen this year, is, when you're talking about the real world, sorry, Nico, I have to use this word, real world metaverse, and then what we call the immersive metaverse, which we see as, walled gardens like Roblox and, Fortnite and things like that. Like this year, we will start to see interconnectivity between the two. So XR, AR will provide kind of that immediate gratification. It'll give you the real world context. You're walking around the retail environment, so that is the brand itself, and you'll see a code to scan and you'll get digital content right then and there. But that may link further into a deeper, immersive metaverse experience that you can kind of enjoy later on, that provides this kind of persistent amount of engagement. Much longer times, much longer, social play, things like that. That will then drive, when you do well, and that will drive back to the retail environment where you can get more web AR stuff. So we call that like a metaverse flywheel of behavior. So in that case, AR becomes almost like a not quite an ad unit, but it's like it's like a snack size piece of experience that can then drive into something deeper and longer.
And I think having some sort of consistency will be teaching consumers how to shift between the physical and digital worlds in these different retail environments and other contexts. So
yeah,
I agree with that prediction. Anything to add on that, Nico?
Well, I was just going to point out that Jason used the M word 4 times, and I find it very disappointing.
We got to break out the drinking game. So.
I think so. Here's a prediction. I think that ad formats in XR, one area that people are maybe underestimating or not thinking at all about is just the idea of contextualization linked to your immediate environment. That once we are either in glasses or closer to that, an understanding of 3 feet around you, 5 feet, 10 feet around you, both out in public and in private, is going to be, that information is going to be known, and recognizing that privacy and how much about your own information you will have to be regulated and managed and handled very carefully, and there's a lifetime of discussions that needs to happen there. But sort of assuming that if if an advertiser knows that I'm I don't know, in front of my front door and struggling with the old lock that's in front of it that I've been meaning to replace for forever, or I'm walking by a storefront and I've been, looking at, buying a new pair of winter boots, not because of searches, but because of, looking through a shop window or trying things on. Or behavioral patterns on oh, you take your dog to the dog park 3 times a day or 4 times a week. Is there stuff related to that can be surfaced in context of what I'm seeing? So overlaying content on those experiences right now, that might seem a little bit creepy, but I'm sure that soon, and certainly with the next generation, with our kids, that's going to be normal. And it's just managing that volume of contextually relevant AR content is going to be interesting.
I mean, I think AR is going to be one of the winners, if I can use the word winners, out of the demise of the third-party cookie, because of it's such a contextually rich media. We're coming up to the pointy end, and I want to get to the exciting case study or the project that you guys have been collaborating on. Maybe Jason, if you want to start us off and chat about the project you and Nico have been working on.
Yeah, so we've been lucky enough to work on a couple in sequence with Nico and his team. The first one was something called AR Pro, which was more consumer facing. It was trying to tell this 5G story about faster download speed so you can do bigger content. But what we did was we captured all these top athletes and volumetrically captured them, so the full 360, and you could place them life size in your environment, and they would teach you their special move. So like Ray Allen would teach you how to shoot a 3-pointer. Megan Rapinoe would teach you how to shoot a free kick. But you could take them out onto a soccer field and see that. And part of what we were trying to kind of test as well was like the idea of learning spatially. So we're so used to either reading that in a book or, of course, like watching this on a video or something like that. But imagine having that athlete in front of you and you could walk all the way around them, see them from the side, walk closer. How does that foot actually, impact the ball? And how much more that could a person could learn from. And then that transitioned into another project that was more on the enterprise side that Nico can talk about.
Yeah, so we're currently working on a proof of concept for what we're calling the evolution of the digital assistant into a 3D hologram. So we
chatbot to hologram.
Exactly, and really that move from 2D to 3D is what we were envisioning, and what we've built with Trigger is the ability to create a digital double of a real person, and then have them speak and gesticulate and have their micro expressions captured and powered by an AI backend. So it feels like a much more natural conversation and interaction. You're not going to mistake them for a real person because we weren't trying for photorealism, but it's going to feel like a natural exchange, much more human-like. And by extension, we believe our hypothesis is that there's more of an emotional connection and investment in that relationship than just conversing with either a 2D character or a chatbot in text or an audio exchange with a digital assistant.
So really,
and if you think about,
go ahead, Jason.
And if you think about that again, what Nico had said before about location being so important in terms of context, so we start off with something that's volumetric, that's captured precisely, and it's the exact performance. So if you imagine you're walking into a theme park or you're walking into a big box store or something like that, and there's a celebrity greeting you or a character greeting you at the front, they can present in the completely accurate volumetric capture way that's the same every single time. But then as soon as you start walking through the park or start walking through the store, it transfers over to the AI version of that digital double that sounds the same, looks the same, as close as possible. But at that point, it's all AI and data driven. You know, if I'm in a different part of the store, they know what the inventory is. They know, you know, what's on sale. They know the price of everything. If you're at a theme park, they can know the weather or wait times, and you know, drive you to another place or entertain you because they know you need to wait a little bit longer at this point. But and it could be something where we create it once, and you could keep that AI database of information updated, you know, months and years at a time, right? You don't have to go back and shoot that celebrity again to say the same different things.
Yeah, so right off the bat, they already have way more data than a real person or a bot. And I'm assuming that it can AI learn to judge how sentiment or emotion in a customer. This person is displaying frustrated tone of voice. I need to calm them down, or this person sounds like, I'm assuming that there's an emotion that they can recognize as well.
So yes, however, there are all kinds of sort of moral and ethical conversations to be had there around responsible AI and management of data. So in our earlier iterations, we're intentionally not capturing any user data, any PII, so as to just focus on the core experience of the exchange. But the next phase is certainly, what could we capture? What's the most responsible, ethical, moral way of doing that? That's also very transparent and is clear to the user, and then use that to obviously make the experience better over time as well.
Right. Well, I think
there's some there's some use cases there that are, you know, I've talked about a couple that are very kind of retail commerce driven, you know, but there are a lot of kind of altruistic use cases too. I mean, we've been talking to some indigenous groups, you know, so, you know, capturing their elders, capturing, you know, dances or skills that are going away, you know, over time, right, as their elders pass, or their younger generation aren't actually interested in their heritage because of the delivery mechanism, but they love technology. So if you could take their past and their history and tell it through this new, you know, newfangled technology, that actually interests their younger members as well. So
it sort of goes back to your point
about
sport being told in a different, being watched in a different way, and consumed in a different way. It's like tech and business evolving for how consumers are sort of changing along the way too.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. How XR is evolving, how that's sort of intertwined with the rollout of 5G, and how this is sort of impacting business. And I imagine the customer service being such a big priority of businesses if they have this technology to really support it and differentiate from maybe ones that don't have such a technology sort of driving that. It could be a real differentiator. So any final words to leave the audience with? Maybe let's start with you, Jason. One piece of advice for those watching. Yeah,
I mean, I think, you know, I think that avocado analogy is great. Like, you know, it's going to be, if it's too early, and it's going to be late, you know, there's so much happening right now on the hardware, software, you know, telco connectivity side that, like, I think it's beyond too early. So, you know, like read the tea leaves. Like this new world is coming for sure. Yeah.
Great. And how about you, Nico?
Yeah, I mean, lean into it now, and do that however you can, because familiarity with the technology, whether it's, you know, gaming on a VR device or you know, buy that piece of furniture after you see it in your home in AR. Like use those technologies in your day-to-day so that you become more and more familiar with both the capabilities but also the limitations. That'll inform, you know, what will soon become the norm for how we interface with technology.
So experiment. Yep.
I mean, from an executive's point of view, I think like there is a material difference between someone who has done like one or two of these things versus someone who's done like tens of these kind of things, you know. So I think there's still that time to really differentiate and pull ahead. So.
Yep. And don't just do a one and done if it didn't work. Sort of spend the time to learn.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us today. That's been a really interesting chat. And yeah, look forward to checking out those projects that you both shared about.
Thank you, Louis.
Thank you so much.
See you, Nico.